In the late 1960s, a man began sending letters to newspapers across California. Inside the envelopes were cryptic codes, chilling threats, and a terrifying claim. He was responsible for a series of brutal murders. He called himself the Zodiac. Despite decades of investigation, thousands of suspects, and modern forensic analysis, the Zodiac Killer has never been officially identified, but the most unsettling part? He may have hidden his identity in plain sight. The story begins in Northern California, late 1968. On December 20th, two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were shot and killed while sitting in a car on a quiet lane near Lake Herman Road. At first, police believed it was a tragic but isolated crime, a senseless act of violence with no clear motive. But months later, the terror returned. Another young couple was attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park, just a few miles from the first crime scene. The killer approached their parked car and opened fire. Miraculously, one victim survived the assault. His description of the attacker would soon become a key piece of one of the most famous criminal investigations in American history, launching a mystery that endures to this day. Then, in August 1969, the game changed. Three major newspapers in California received nearly identical letters. Each envelope contained a handwritten message, a strange and complex cryptogram, and a chilling demand. The writer insisted that the letters and the ciphers be published on the front page of their papers. If they refused, he claimed he would continue killing, promising a weekend rampage of more murders. The sender signed the message not with a name, but with a strange symbol, a circle crossed by 4 lines. It was the symbol that would become known as the mark of the Zodiac Killer, a brand of terror seared into the public consciousness. The letters were just the beginning of a twisted dialogue with the media and the police, a performance of violence that held an entire state in a grip of fear. The letters continued. More codes, more threats, and tragically, more murders. The killer grew bolder, his attacks more brazen and theatrical. In one horrifying attack near Lake Berryessa, a man wearing a black executioner-style hood approached a couple picnicking by the shore. The hood had the now infamous Zodiac symbol sewn onto the chest. He tied up the victims before brutally stabbing them. Again, one of them survived the attack, providing even more terrifying details about the hooded assailant. Before leaving the scene, the attacker wrote a message on the victim's car door, listing the dates of his previous murders and signing it with his symbol and the single word, Zodiac. Then, just weeks later, a taxi driver named Paul Stein was murdered in the heart of San Francisco. Witnesses saw the killer calmly walk away from the crime scene, wiping down the cab. He even mailed a piece of the victim's blood-soaked shirt to newspapers as a gruesome trophy, proving his involvement beyond any doubt and further cementing his terrifying legend. The Zodiac's letters included multiple encrypted messages, designed to taunt the police and captivate the public. One of them, the 408-symbol cipher, was quickly solved not by law enforcement but by a schoolteacher and his wife. The message contained disturbing statements about killing people for pleasure, comparing it to hunting animals, and his belief that his victims would be his slaves in the afterlife. But the most famous code, the far more complex 340-character cipher, remained unsolved for more than 50 years. It stumped the FBI, the CIA, and countless amateur sleuths. Until 2020, a team of amateur codebreakers from around the world finally cracked it. The world held its breath, hoping for a name, a confession, a final clue. Yet surprisingly, the decoded message did not reveal the killer's identity. It was more taunting, more rambling, filled with defiance and claims that he was not afraid of being caught. The biggest secret seemed to remain locked away. Over the years, investigators have examined many suspects, creating a long list of potential Zodiacs. One of the most widely discussed was Arthur Lee Allen, a former teacher with a troubled past. He matched some circumstantial clues. He was in the right areas at the right times, owned a Zodiac brand watch, and allegedly made incriminating statements to friends. However, fingerprint and handwriting analysis did not conclusively link him to the crimes, and DNA evidence later seemed to rule him out. Another chilling possibility is that the Zodiac Killer may have been someone who was never seriously investigated at all, a ghost who slipped through the cracks. After all, the killer demonstrated a remarkable ability to stay ahead of the police, even seeming to listen to their radio dispatches. He clearly enjoyed taunting investigators through the media, playing a deadly game where he made all the rules. Was he a genius, or just incredibly lucky? Officially, the Zodiac Killer has been linked to 5 murders and 2 attempted murders. But in his own letters, he claimed responsibility for as many as 37 victims. Many of his cryptograms remain unsolved to this day, holding whatever secrets he decided to encode within them. And despite decades of investigation, advances in forensic technology, and the tireless work of both law enforcement and citizen detectives, the identity of the Zodiac Killer has never been confirmed. The case remains open in several jurisdictions, a lingering shadow over California history. He created a persona that was larger than life. A modern-day Jack the Ripper who used the mail and the media as his stage. In the end, the Zodiac Killer wanted attention. He wanted people to remember his symbol, his letters, his codes. He wanted to create a myth that would outlive him. More than half a century later, his dark plan worked. He's more famous than any of his victims, a boogeyman whose story is told and retold. Because even today, the question remains, was the Zodiac Killer hiding his identity inside the very codes he left behind, a final puzzle waiting to be solved? Or did he simply disappear into history, forever unknown, his face lost to the crowd? The mystery of the Zodiac is not just about who he was, but about the terror he created and the questions that still haunt us. Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. See you in the next video.